So we've got a new product coming out here in a couple of weeks called the Fascia Chronicles, and this is something that has been in the works for quite some time now. Myself, my wife Nicole, my business partner Jeremy, and good buddy Rob Umphris have all collaborated on this, and I mean I'm extremely excited about how everything came out. But obviously, that in conjunction with the move, recently relocating down to Texas. I've been having a lot more conversation, and a lot of this is with new people and new environments. And so I was talking with somebody the other day, and the Fashion Chronicles came up, and he asked me, how did you even get into this, and especially as a strength and conditioning coach, how did you find your way to this fascia stuff, and what kind of prompted it? And this is a question that I've gotten over the years quite a few times, but it really kind of got me to start thinking a little bit deeper, about kind of this journey or this path that I've been on over the last 6 or 7 years now. And the more that I think about it, the more that I can only really describe this as being my muse, and something that I've really just become so immersed in, and really have started to find myself just constantly thinking about different mechanics of fascial tissue, human movement. Why is our physiology the way that it is? Why is the field the way that it is, and our academia the way that it is? And so with that, it again, muse is the best word that I can really kind of describe this as. I'll touch more on the product release towards the end of this, but really the premise of this quick little video that I wanted to get across is exactly that, this journey that got to this point, with the fascial stuff, and with the evolution of my approach to strength and conditioning and human movement, and so on and so forth. So it all really starts back about 10 years ago, when I was in undergrad at Old Dominion, and I've shared this before, but make no mistake about it, I was a in the fullest sense, and I was absolutely a degenerate when it came to academics. The exercise science curriculum never really excited me, and as somebody who's been a lifelong athlete, I've always loved working out, and always obviously had some level of interest in this stuff. It really never made sense to me how something that's so dynamic and so vexing and mesmerizing could actually be perceived as boring. I got kicked out of school. I was fired from work. I had recently kind of lost, everything in my life. All of my friends and family had kind of disbanded. I had more self-inflicted mistakes than I can care to count. But it left me with a Wi-Fi connection and a notebook. We fast track a little bit, and then, that brings me to VHP. And this was really the accelerator. Once I got to VHP, I started to get my shit together, and started to really take this career on fiercely. I have really gotten to a point where I am genuinely committed to this, and it means a lot to me. So the time at VHP, working with the tactical population and working with the injured and adaptive populations, you're quickly met with the limitations of the conventional applications and conventional perspectives of training and human performance. So this prompted me to again look outward and find different sources and different people that could give me things that were actionable, that were tangible, and that were pragmatic for the situations that I was in. If you have somebody who, and we don't even need to go into the prosthetic population, the paralysis population. I mean, I'm even just talking about people with, L3, L4, L5 fusions and cervical discs that have been completely eroded away and compressed, and multiple labral tears, rotator cuff tears. Even injuries such as these really just prohibits these individuals or athletes from being able to do things like push, press, back squat, deadlift. So we had to start to figure this thing out. That led me to the Anatomy Trains group, Tom Myers, the Steckos, Robert Schleip, all these amazing people who have really set the course for the fascial understanding. And it was almost as in this aha moment. I was like, oh my God, there's more. And then that was really when I doubled down on it. So now we get to the point of 2017, 2018. I finally have figured out my conventional sciences and anatomies. I start to get some momentum on the fascial side. We're doing really great work at VHP. And then it occurred to me, that we have more resources, more information, more data collection and tracking, biographical and otherwise, than ever before. We have, open source information sharing, all these different platforms, and everything, all of it is great. But with all of these things, we are also at the same time still seeing a continual rise in soft tissue injury, specifically non-contact soft tissue injury. And this is something that is pretty much pervasive across all sports, from the professional levels down to the high school levels. We're continuing to see this really uncontrollable rise in injuries. And what is confounding for me is that we have obviously been doing some really good things on the strength and conditioning and performance side, because our testing data and the ability for human movement and function and performance is as great as we've ever seen it. I mean, we've seen people break the 40-yard dash combine record. We've seen the vertical jump record get broken at the NBA combine. We've seen just unworldly, unbelievable athletic ability across a multitude of sports. So in my mind, I'm like, well, if we're doing so well on the performance side, what the hell is happening on the injury side, and how come we're seeing shorter careers? We're seeing athletes that are more derailed by injury, having season-ending, career-ending injuries. So what's the missing piece? Given my background with the tactical community at VHP, and then now being back in this more sports performance-based setting, I'm really trying to look to bridge the gap between the two. How do we retain this progress and the incredible stuff that we've developed on the performance side, and then back it on the other side with the resilience and the durability, to be able to keep men and women healthy and continue to perform at a high level. I think that, the human body is just unbelievably complex and vexing. It is something that we really just are beginning to figure out, in my opinion. And we've done some incredible things. So again, this isn't, an indictment on our community or on our field. And I think that what we've gotten to this point is truly phenomenal. But I think that at the end of the day, we're really still just in this infancy or early developmental phase of our field. If we take the 1960s, give or take, with Boyd Epley and them kind of formalizing strength and conditioning, that's only 60 years ago. Think about other practices, medical practices, legal practices, real estate practices. All of these things date back, well over 100 years. And for me personally, that's what actually excites me more than anything else is that everything is still very dynamic. We're still in the process of figuring out. And I think that we need to kind of take a step back from this, this solidified approach or this definitive mindset of like, this is the best way we do anything. This is the best way to do this. If you see this problem, this is the answer. And it just really is not that cut and dry. It's not that simple. There's a lot more nuance to this. And again, I think that's the piece that a lot of people shy away from. But really, if we want to try to push this field forward, we have to really sink our teeth into that last 20% or whatever it may be of figuring these things out. If my trajectory of this field and human performance and sports performance is correct, I would say that what we're seeing right now is going to look dramatically different 25 years from now, 50 years from now. And from my perspective or position, I want to do everything that I can to help feed that for the people that are coming to follow after. So the complexity and the sophistication of the human body is again something that is closely tied to the fascial system and how this fascial tissue integrates into function and performance and injury restoration. So that leads me to what was a really defining moment for me, or defining week rather. About a year ago, I went out to Anatomy Train's fascial dissection course, which is out in Boulder, Colorado, and believe me, they're not paying me a dime to promote this thing at all or anything, so this is just my genuine opinion, but this was a life-changing course. Not just career-changing, but life-changing course. And the difference with this course is that the cadavers that we utilized in this course were unembalmed, no preservation, no chemicalization, and when we started on day one, all of the bodies were fully skinned, fully intact. So, again, I had 60, 80 hours or something of cadaveric dissection time in lab throughout undergrad and graduate school. So I had some experience on that side too. The time that I spent in Boulder at this course last year absolutely changed the game. It gave me an entirely new perspective on how our anatomy is and how it functions. The problem with current cadaveric research, and this also speaks as to why there's so much ambiguity with the fascial system, is that when we go through the embalmment process or the chemicalization process for cadaveric research, it essentially denigrates and dehydrates all of the tissues. So, blood is drawn out of the body, it's replaced with other things. There's all kinds of chemicals that are, meant to preserve the cadaver or the body. But what it does is it really denigrates the fascial tissue. So what we're seeing with cadaveric dissection in most cases is not complete. And I'm not going to sit here and say that, because of this, all of our research has been wrong. We've been, guided by the wrong compass or anything like that. However, the presence of fascial tissue changes the dynamics of the body and it changes the physiology and the anatomy. That's another point that I should mention here as well for anybody who may not be, or who may be dismissive of this, right? What is the fascia? Can we even see it? Can we measure it? There's no objective data, blah, blah, blah. All of these things are, right? Like, you'll hear people say that there's a very limited scope of research on fascia. Completely untrue. I have over 100 research studies in an archive in my computer right now. It's not a real tissue. It's this, it's something that's ambiguous, or it's just a non-functional packing tissue or filler tissue. Not true. I've seen it. I've felt it. I have cut it. I've held it. It is an absolutely real thing, and it is penetrating every aspect of our anatomy. It is intimately woven, not only just encasing around and through muscle tissue, but it's tightly woven around tendons, ligaments. It encases or encircles nerve fibers, circulatory vessels, anything that you can think of within the human body. The fascial tissue serves as the connection piece. And this is why when we say things like everything affects everything, that is really quite literal, because of how tightly woven and intimately packed fascia is within the layers of the skin, the actual muscle belly itself, and again, all of those surrounding connective tissues, the periosteum of the bone. So the course and the time that I spent out there, just from the visual optics or ability to observe the tissue in full view, was just an unbelievable experience for me. In addition to that, it was really powerful for me to be in a room full of 30 or 40 people, of which they were far from all strength and conditioning coaches. We were 2 of maybe 4 or so in the entire group, but from doctors to anesthesiologists, there was a sex education coach in our cohort, which I thought was really fascinating. People from all kinds of walks of life, and seeing and hearing the way that they have found success in their practice by taking this fascial-based approach or having a deeper sense of understanding or appreciation for the fascial tissue, kind of gave me like a little bit of a jolt of confidence, where I came back and I was like, okay, I'm not fucking crazy. Like I can continue down this path and continue to study more. With where I'm at now, I go back to the soft tissue injury rate, and with the experience that I collected through VHP with injury restoration and working with complex injuries, and now bringing that into a sports performance setting, I think that there's a lot of things that are being missed, and a lot of things that we're really not putting enough emphasis on, and some things that we're putting too much emphasis on, that we can really start to build in and have a much better and complete model that's not going to take away from the improvements in performance, but at the same time, it's not going to overtax or overstress our athletes and put them in a position to be vulnerable for injury. All of these things obviously are going to be discussed in full in our product in the Fascia Chronicles, but really these are the types of things that kind of keep me up at night, and the things that I kind of chew on during commuting to and from work and things like that. And it makes me wonder, what is the significance of the difference between the contractile tissue capacity and the connective tissue resiliency? And that's one of my theories, is that I think that we have gotten to a point where we're essentially giving more horsepower than our athletes are able to sustain or manage or support. And because of that, we have to work much harder on injury return to play restoration because there's so many things that are being missed when athletes are healthy that we have to kind of implement them after the fact once it's already past the point of an injury occurring. The other thing is just very generally and broadly speaking, trying to figure out precisely how much does fascial function and how much does the fascial system contribute to things like, posture, locomotion, performance, injury occurrence, and injury restoration. And have we been emphasizing and valuing the wrong things along the way? And how can we shift the paradigm to kind of bridge the gap between these two worlds? And then, finally, just generally, how is it all connected? What humanizes our movement? If you look at conventional kinematics, and if you think about everything as being this, the encasing of a bunch of isolated parts that, all perform specific functions one at a time, and that's how we produce movement, you're just not getting the point. Not only does the math not add up to that when you really start to break it down, but also at the same time, there is so much sophistication and novelty to the way that we move and the helical nature of joint action, and how there's consistently a reciprocity between different muscle groups and different connective tissues and everything. And I think that these are things that have not yet become reflective in our approach to performance training and to injury restoration. So that leads me to this, why does this matter? And as I've mentioned, right, our model is not wrong, but it is incomplete. And we need to continue to figure out how we can fill in the disconnect and fill in these missing gaps and improve our research process, improve our cadaveric processes, and see if we can't figure out a way to have more accurate and honest research that is more reflective of how the body works when we're actually living, breathing, moving humans. My big kind of 10,000 foot focus is really trying to figure out why we see such a ridiculous rate of non-contact injuries. And I think the third thing that comes to mind for me is just we need to continue to refine and remodel our perspective on performance. This is a dynamic field. So when we see people that are just very, very adamant about basics, well, you just got to do this, you just got to do this. I'm like, man, if it were really that simple, then none of us would have a job because we would already have had this figured out, right? Like there's more to it than this, and there's more nuance to it. And, I'm not even going to go off on my soapbox about, how we're, one of the most underpaid industries in the world. But we sit there and then continue to about being underpaid, and then at the same time talk about, everything is so basic and simple. And I just disagree with that. But to stick to the point here, improving our perspective on performance, injury restoration. We need to continue to have dialogue. We need to have conversation with people from different communities and different, sub-focus or disciplines underneath the human performance umbrella. And I think that, from my perspective, this is just what I can, provide that's going to be of most valuable for most people. But now I'll leave you here with my promotional pitch. So the Fascia Chronicles, it's going to be a monster. It's a 10-hour webinar. It's, not just me talking, multiple people contributed to this thing. And honest to God, man, it really came out great. I'm extremely happy with everything. This is something that's going to be exclusively released through Simply Faster, and I simply cannot thank them enough, not only for what they're doing for this product, but just how great they've been to me and Nicole over the years, and all that they continue to do for us. It will be through our platform on Thinkific. So it's an interactive platform where you can kind of start and stop, and it'll, you can come back to it at any time. We tried to make this thing as digestible and comprehensive as possible. So, we broke everything up into 20 to 30 minute modules, and this is not something that you need to just rush your way through, especially if this is something that is new for you, or if this is one of your first fascial-based products. I would say take your time. Go through this over the course of months, 3-4 months. Work your way through it. But we cover a lot of different material in here. Everything from the understanding, the anatomy, the mechanics of fascia, the physiology. We get into some fluid dynamics. We get into the electrical components. And then we get into a lot of the training applications, assessing, different modalities, different ways we can tweak programming. All these different things are covered. So be on the lookout for this. And if anybody has any questions regarding the product in the meantime, please feel free to reach out to us at any time. And you can also subscribe to our newsletter through our website at ruderockstrength.com for continued updates on this.